Grandma Rose sat on her favorite armchair, gently turning the pages of a worn photo album while her 16-year-old granddaughter Emma scrolled through her phone nearby. The old woman's fingers lingered on a particular photograph. A young Korean man with gentle eyes and a bright smile, standing next to a much younger version of herself. Emma glanced up from her TikTok feed and noticed the wistful expression on her grandmother's face. "Grandma, you've been looking at that same photo for weeks now. Who is that guy? Was he your boyfriend or something?" Rose chuckled softly, closing the album and patting the spot next to her on the couch. "Oh, sweetheart, if I told you who this young man really is, you'd think your old grandmother had lost her marbles completely." Emma rolled her eyes playfully and settled next to Rose, her curiosity piqued by the mysterious tone in her grandmother's voice. "Try me, Grandma. I bet it's not that crazy." Rose opened the album again, this time with deliberate care, and pointed to the same photograph. "This, my dear Emma, is Kim Taehyung. And before you ask, yes, the same Kim Taehyung who's now known as V from BTS, the biggest boy band in the world." Emma's phone slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor, her eyes widening in complete disbelief. "Wait, what? Grandma, are you serious right now? That's literally V from BTS? The V? The one with like 50 million Instagram followers?" Rose nodded with a knowing smile, watching her granddaughter's shocked expression with amusement. "I know it sounds impossible, darling, but this photo was taken in 2013, back when your grandfather's work took us to Seoul for 3 years. I was working part-time at a small café near the university to keep myself busy while he traveled for business meetings." Rose's voice took on a dreamy quality as she reminisced. Taehyung was just 17 then, this skinny kid who came in every day after school, always carrying his music sheets and humming melodies under his breath. He'd order the cheapest coffee on the menu and sit in the corner booth for hours, practicing dance moves when he thought nobody was watching. Emma leaned forward, completely captivated by the story unfolding before her. "He was so different from the confident superstar you see on stage now," Rose continued, her eyes sparkling with the memory. "Shy, a little awkward, but there was something special about him. This unwavering determination that made him stand out from other teenagers. He'd tell me about his dreams of becoming a singer, about the auditions he was going to, about this company called Big Hit Entertainment that he hoped would give him a chance. Most adults would have dismissed it as childish fantasy, but something in his eyes told me he was destined for greatness." Emma sat in stunned silence, trying to process the revelation that her 70-year-old grandmother had once known one of the most famous people on the planet when he was just a regular teenager with big dreams. "I remember the exact day everything changed for him," Rose said, her voice filled with pride and nostalgia. "It was a cold Tuesday in November 2012, and Taehyung burst into the cafe with the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face. He'd just gotten the call. Big Hit Entertainment wanted him to join their new group called BTS. I was so happy for him, even though I had no idea what that would mean for his future, or for the brief friendship we developed over those months of daily coffee orders and conversations about music and dreams." Rose paused, her expression growing more serious. "But Emma, that's when our paths had to diverge. Your grandfather's contract ended, and we had to return to America just as Taehyung's career was beginning. This was 2013, remember? Social media wasn't what it is today, international phone calls were expensive, and we were from completely different worlds. We promised to keep in touch, but life has a way of pulling people in different directions, and gradually we lost contact entirely. For years, I wondered what had happened to that sweet boy with the big dreams," Rose continued, opening her laptop and navigating to YouTube. "Then in 2017, my neighbor's daughter was playing some music video, and I heard this familiar voice. I asked her to replay it, and there he was, my Taehyung, but now he was V, performing DNA with 6 other incredibly talented young men to millions of screaming fans worldwide. Couldn't believe my eyes." Emma watched in amazement as her grandmother pulled up video after video, showing her clips of award shows, concerts, and interviews. "I became what you kids call a stan, I suppose," Rose laughed. "I watched every performance, learned about each comeback, even figured out how to vote for them during awards season. Your grandfather thought I'd gone crazy with my sudden obsession with K-pop, But I couldn't tell him the truth, that I was watching someone I'd once known personally become one of the most successful entertainers in the world. The hardest part, Rose admitted, was seeing him in interviews talking about his trainee days, about the people who believed in him before he became famous, and wondering if he ever remembered the American woman who used to slip him free pastries when he couldn't afford lunch. I'd watch him perform Stigma or Winter Bear, and wonder if any part of those emotional songs carried memories of our conversations about dreams and loneliness and the fear of failure. Emma was completely speechless, her mind racing with questions and disbelief. Grandma, this is literally insane. You're telling me you knew V before he was V? Before BTS? Before any of this fame? She gestured wildly at the laptop screen showing concert footage of thousands of fans screaming Taehyung's name. Do you realize how impossible this sounds? I mean, I believe you because you have photos and everything, but this is like winning the lottery of random life experiences. Rose smiled warmly at her granddaughter's reaction. I know it's hard to believe, sweetheart. There were times over the years when I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. If maybe I was just projecting my memories onto this famous person who happened to share a name with someone I once knew. But then I'd see certain expressions on his face during interviews, or hear him laugh in a particular way, and I'd know for certain it was really him. But here's the part of the story that's going to sound even more unbelievable, Rose said, reaching for her phone with trembling hands. Last month, I finally worked up the courage to send him a message on Instagram. I didn't expect a response. I mean, he must get thousands of messages every day from fans around the world. I just wanted him to know that someone from his past was proud of how far he'd come, and that those dreams he used to share with me had come true in ways more beautiful than either of us could have imagined. Emma leaned forward eagerly. And? Did he respond? Oh my God, Grandma. Please tell me he responded. Rose nodded, her eyes filling with tears of joy and disbelief. Not only did he respond, but he remembered me immediately. He said he'd been thinking about the American lady from the Seoul café for years, wondering what had happened to me and whether I'd ever seen him perform. He even remembered my favorite coffee order and the way I used to hum along to the songs he'd play on his phone. Emma, what I'm about to show you happened just this morning, Rose said, opening her Instagram messages with shaking hands. Taehyung V is currently in Los Angeles for some meetings with American collaborators, and he wants to meet me, today, in person, after all these years. She turned the phone screen toward Emma, showing a series of recent messages that made the teenager's jaw drop completely. The messages read, Rose, I can't believe it's really you. I'm in LA right now and I have a free day tomorrow. Would you like to meet for coffee? I want to hear about your life and tell you how much our conversations in Seoul meant to me during those scary early days. I still remember you telling me that dreams are worth pursuing even when they seem impossible. You were right, and I want to thank you in person. Emma stared at the phone screen, then at her grandmother, then back at the screen. This is not real. This cannot be real. Grandma, you're telling me that V from BTS, the V from BTS, wants to have coffee with you tomorrow? This is literally the most insane thing that has ever happened to anyone in the history of the world. She jumped up from the couch, pacing around the living room in excitement and disbelief. He sent me the address of a private cafe in Beverly Hills, Rose explained, scrolling through more messages. He said his security team has already checked it out, and we can have a quiet conversation without being disturbed by fans or paparazzi. He wants to catch up on the last 12 years and hear about my family, about you, actually. I told him I had a granddaughter who's a big fan of BTS, and he seemed excited to meet you too, if you're interested. Emma stopped pacing abruptly. If I'm interested? Grandma, are you kidding me right now? You're asking if I'm interested in meeting V from BTS? I literally have his photos all over my bedroom wall. I've been to 2 of their concerts. I've spent my entire allowance on BT21 merchandise. Of course I want to meet him. But also, how is this my life right now? There's more, Rose said with a mysterious smile. He mentioned that the other members are curious about me too. Apparently, he's told them stories about the kind American lady who used to give him free food and encourage his dreams when he was just a trainee. Jean wants to know if I have any embarrassing stories about V from before he was famous. And Jimin is apparently convinced that meeting me will be like meeting a piece of BTS history. Emma sat down heavily, putting her head in her hands. I need a moment to process this. My grandmother, who I thought spent her day doing crossword puzzles and watching cooking shows, is actually friends with one of the most famous people on earth. And not just any famous person. She knew him before he was famous, which is somehow even cooler. This is like finding out your grandmother used to date Clark Kent before he became Superman. The most beautiful part of all this, Rose said softly, is that despite all his success, despite all the fame and the millions of fans, he's still fundamentally the same person I knew in Seoul. His messages are still full of that same kindness and sincerity that drew me to him as a teenager. He hasn't let fame change who he is at his core, and that tells me everything I need to know about the man he's become. Rose showed Emma more of their conversation, including photos that Taehyung had sent from his recent travels, and Emma noticed how his messages to her grandmother were different from his usual public persona, more relaxed, more personal, full of genuine warmth and curiosity about her life. He wants to know about Grandpa, about you kids, about what I've been doing all these years. It's like he's genuinely interested in the life of someone who knew him before the whole world knew him. You know what the most incredible part of this story is? Emma said, finally looking up at her grandmother with newfound admiration. It's not just that you knew V before he was famous. It's that you were probably one of the people who helped him believe in himself when he needed it most. Like, you were literally part of his origin story, Grandma. You're like a real-life character in the BTS universe. Rose laughed at her granddaughter's enthusiasm. I prefer to think of it as being incredibly lucky to have crossed paths with someone so special at exactly the right moment in both of our lives. He needed someone to believe in his dreams, and I needed to be reminded that dreams can come true if you're brave enough to pursue them. We helped each other in ways we probably didn't even realize at the time. So what happens tomorrow? Emma asked, still trying to wrap her mind around the surreal situation. Are we really going to have coffee with V from BTS like it's just a normal Tuesday? How do I even prepare for something like this? What do I wear? What do I say? Oh my God, Grandma. What if I embarrass myself in front of him? We're going to treat him exactly like we treat any old friend who's coming to visit, Rose replied with a gentle smile. Because that's what he is. Fundamentally, an old friend who's had some extraordinary experiences since we last saw each other. Yes, he's incredibly famous now, but he's still the same person who used to worry about his additions and share his dreams with a stranger in a coffee shop. The next morning arrived with unprecedented excitement in the household. Emma had barely slept, alternating between disbelief that this was actually happening and anxiety about meeting one of her idols in such an intimate setting. Rose, meanwhile, had spent the evening looking through old photos and memories, preparing herself to reconnect with someone who had been frozen in time as a 17-year-old boy, but was now a 30-year-old global superstar. The private café in Beverly Hills was exactly as discreet as Taehyung had promised, a small, cozy space with only a few tables, far from the bustling areas where fans might congregate. When Rose and Emma arrived, they were greeted by a polite security guard who escorted them to a corner table where a familiar figure was already waiting. Looking remarkably normal in simple jeans and a sweater, his famous face partially hidden by a baseball cap and mask. When Taehyung looked up and saw Rose approaching, his entire face lit up with genuine joy and recognition. He stood immediately, removing his mask to reveal the warm smile that had captivated millions of fans worldwide. But in this moment, it was directed solely at the woman who had known him before any of that fame existed. Rose, he said softly, his voice carrying the same gentleness she remembered from their Seoul café days. I can't believe it's really you. The reunion was everything Rose had hoped for and more. Despite 12 years and countless life changes, their conversation flowed as naturally as it had in 2013. Taehyung wanted to hear about every detail of Rose's life, her family, her interests, her thoughts on his career, while sharing stories about his journey from trainee to global superstar, always crediting the people who had supported him along the way, including her. Emma, Taehyung said, turning his attention to Rose's granddaughter with the same warmth he'd shown her grandmother. Your grandmother probably doesn't realize how important she was during one of the most uncertain periods of my life. There were days when I almost gave up on my dreams, but remembering her belief in me kept me going through the hardest training sessions and most discouraging auditions. Emma found herself surprisingly comfortable talking to someone she'd only ever seen on screens and stages. Away from the elaborate performances and public appearances, Taehyung was remarkably down-to-earth, asking about her school, her interests, and her own dreams with genuine curiosity. Your grandmother taught me that age doesn't matter when it comes to supporting someone's dreams, he told Emma. She was probably 40 years older than me, but she understood my passion better than most people my own age. As their coffee meeting stretched into lunch and then afternoon tea, the conversation covered everything from music and career changes to family traditions and the strange coincidences that bring people together across time and distance. Taehyung shared stories about the other BTS members, his solo work, and his hopes for the future, while Rose and Emma told him about their life in America, their family traditions, and the surreal experience of watching someone they knew personally become one of the most recognizable people on Earth. The most beautiful thing about all this, Taehyung said as their reunion began to wind down, is that it reminds me why I started making music in the first place. It wasn't for the fame or the awards. It was to connect with people, to share emotions and experiences that bring us together despite our differences. Meeting you both today feels like completing a circle that started 12 years ago in a small café in Seoul. Before they parted ways, Taehyung insisted on taking photos with both Rose and Emma, not for social media or publicity, but as personal mementos of an extraordinary day that none of them would ever forget. He also extended an invitation for them to attend BTS's next Los Angeles concert as his personal guests, promising to introduce them to the other members and give them a behind-the-scenes look at the world he'd built on the foundation of dreams they'd once discussed over coffee and pastries. As they said their goodbyes, Rose realized that this reunion had given her something she hadn't expected, not just closure on a chapter from her past, but inspiration for whatever chapters lay ahead. Watching someone she'd known as an uncertain teenager become confident enough to perform for millions of people reminded her that transformation and growth are possible at any stage of life, and that the connections we make with others can have impacts we never fully understand. Thank you, Taehyung said, hugging Rose goodbye with the same genuine affection he'd shown throughout their reunion. Thank you for believing in me when I was just a kid with impossible dreams. And thank you for reminding me today why those dreams were worth pursuing. I hope Emma realizes how lucky she is to have a grandmother who understands that supporting someone's passions is one of the most beautiful gifts you can give. Emma watched this exchange with tears in her eyes, understanding that she'd witnessed something far more precious than a celebrity encounter. She'd seen two people reconnect across time and circumstance, their bond strengthened rather than diminished by the years and changes that had transformed their lives. Her grandmother had taught her something profound about the lasting impact of kindness and the beautiful unpredictability of human connections. That evening, as Rose and Emma sat together looking through the photos from their incredible day, Emma shook her head in continued amazement. Grandma, I still can't believe this actually happened. I mean, I have selfies with V from BTS, but more than that, I got to see you reconnect with someone who clearly means a lot to you. It's like the universe conspired to bring you two back together at exactly the right moment. Rose smiled, closing the photo album that had started this whole adventure and looking forward to filling it with new memories. Sometimes, sweetheart, the most extraordinary stories begin with the most ordinary moments, like serving coffee to a polite teenager who talks about his dreams. You never know which seemingly small interactions might turn out to be the most significant ones of your life.